Welcome, everybody, as you arrive. We're here for another weekly update and questions and answers about what's been going on in the Dáil and in eco-socialist politics. I suppose that the number one thing, well, first of all, just obviously feel free to share it, invite others to join, and throw any questions you have in there. I will definitely get to the questions. You just need to give me a little bit of time to get to them as I talk through different topics and stuff. I might go for 20 minutes or so. I suppose the number one thing, as it has been the number one issue in society over the whole last number of years, is the housing crisis, and in particular the new homeless figures. You probably, or you might have seen, they came out last Friday. They always kind of release them at a time designed to get as little attention as is possible. In this case, we've gone well over 12,000 people total homeless, a new record for this government, over 3,500 children homeless. And this is like a direct consequence of the decision to lift the eviction ban. Direct. The government made the decision to make more people homeless, and now we're experiencing that. Now people are going into emergency overcrowded accommodation, into hotel accommodation. Some of those children will end up in those circumstances potentially for years, and that is a direct consequence of the government's decision to lift the eviction ban. We raised this, Richard Boyd Barrett raised it yesterday in the Dáil for People Before Profit, and Varadkar's answer was heartless, to say the least. Basically he was like, well, in the medium and long term it'll be better not to have an eviction ban. And he said, well, evictions rose while we had the eviction ban too, or homelessness rose while we had the eviction ban too, which is true. But what he ignored, and which Richard pointed out to him, is that the rate of increase has dramatically shot up. This is the highest rate of increase month on month we've had for years. And it's like very obviously related to the lifting of the eviction ban. And the other thing I'd say is that this is the tip of the iceberg. There's we know from my constituency office in terms of what people are coming to us with, is that there are thousands and thousands of evictions coming down the line in the coming months. So this is only going to get worse, and very clearly, if the government was actually interested in serving the needs of ordinary people as opposed to the landlords and the big developers, is that clearly you need to stop the flow of people into evictions, stop the bleeding. That's the number one thing to do by banning evictions. And then you need to obviously put the measures into place to actually tackle the underlying causes of the housing crisis. I saw someone, I think on Instagram, mentioning there, Fianna Fáil are delusional if lifting the eviction ban is good, but the fundamental cause of the housing crisis is that they're pursuing policies that are good for the people they represent, the big corporate landlords, the private developers. Question coming in: how did you vote when TD salary pay rise was up for debate? I'm not sure it's been voted on recently, but certainly we're absolutely opposed to the TD pay rises. We don't take them, and we're in favour of massively cutting politicians' salaries to the salary of ordinary workers. That's the wage that we take. All the rest of the money in the TD salary goes to support local campaigns, donated to striking workers, and things like that. Exactly. People of Ireland can't even get into the rental market, even working 60 hours a week. That's the rental market is absolutely out of control. Record rents, along with record homelessness, and almost record house prices. And so we need policies that are about housing people, which means reinstating the eviction ban. It means using the vacant properties that are across the state, 50,000 have been vacant for 6 years or more, almost 140,000 in total. It means proper rent controls that bring rents down. We brought forward legislation to do that. And it means state construction company building social and genuinely affordable housing on a massive scale. That's what we need to do. You're a part of this. I think that's suggesting that People for Profit has some hand in the housing crisis or whatever. We really don't. We're on the side of ordinary people. We were the ones together with others and Raise the Roof and the Cost of Living Coalition trying to mobilise protests for action on the housing crisis and other things. Exactly, the price of groceries gone through the roof. No change in terms of people's salaries. So we need price controls, and we need people to get a wage increase. And an important way that could be done from here is by significantly increasing the minimum wage. Pineapple and pizza, yes, definitely. Irish Water taking control from local authorities. Yeah, this is a very important workers' dispute coming up. We're opposed to this. Obviously, we opposed Irish Water from the very, very start. And workers have balloted after a very impressive rank and file campaign by water services workers. Workers have balloted, overwhelmingly voted in favour of strike action on June 8th and June 9th, if I'm not mistaken. And effectively, there's two issues. One is the fact that the basic terms and conditions, overtime and so on, of the workers is not red circled if they opt. They say, well, workers have the choice. They don't have to go from the local authorities to Irish Water. But if you don't go, then none of those things are guaranteed. And then the other key issue is correctly the fear from the workers that Irish Water could be privatised in future. And the workers were given a guarantee previously, which hasn't been met, to say that we'd have a referendum to put Irish Water in public ownership in the Constitution, and that hasn't been delivered. Comment come in there. It's down to how refugees coming here are being handled. That's causing serious resentment. See, the point I'd make is that I think Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are delighted to see ordinary people blaming asylum seekers for the housing crisis or the health crisis or the education crisis, any crises in our public services. Because we all know there was a housing crisis before Putin invaded Ukraine, before there was a significant increase in asylum seekers. If all the asylum seekers went home tomorrow, we would still have a housing crisis because they're in overcrowded, inappropriate accommodation, similar to which our own Irish homeless people are in. So they are not the cause of the housing crisis, and it suits the government to have people suggesting that these are the problem, because it means people are looking in the wrong direction. They're looking sideways or downwards as opposed to looking upwards. People who are responsible for the housing crisis are the government, for the policies they've pursued, and the people they represent, those who are getting rich from the housing crisis. Because the housing crisis isn't just like this natural disaster that everyone's affected by. No, for some, the housing crisis is a massive opportunity to profit. And all the government's policies are directed towards that. And so we need to unite ordinary people who are affected by the housing crisis, public service crisis, health crisis, etc. Unite, like we did with the water charges, against ordinary people. They're taking houses off the Irish, properties being bought by town. That's not accurate. I mean, if you've proof of that, put it in the thing, but it's really not accurate. I don't know what that means. What's been done about 100,000 empty properties across the country? Basically nothing. Nothing, unfortunately, is the problem at the moment. The housing bill is not the answer. You shouldn't have the power to seize people's homes. So I know what that's about. That refers to the right to housing bill, which certain people who are agitating against asylum seekers, who are in favour of evictions, they're against the eviction ban, are trying to suggest that our right to housing bill that would put the right to housing in the Constitution is about seizing ordinary people's homes. That's complete rubbish. That's complete nonsense. That's a lie designed to distract people from what's actually going on. So the right to housing bill would put the right for ordinary people to housing in the Constitution, which would mean the next time we come up with a proposal to have proper rent controls or an eviction ban, the government would say, we can't do that because their right to private property is in the Constitution. We're going to say, well, no, that right to private property of the big corporate landlords or private developers has to be balanced against the right of the common good of ordinary people to be able to have a home. And that would include, for example, councils not being able to evict, no fault evictions of ordinary people. It's not about making it easier to take people out of their home. It's about making it harder to take people out of their home. And it isn't about seizing people's homes. I would say that, if landlords are sitting on multiple properties, leaving them vacant in the course of the housing crisis, we need use it or lose it legislation. That, either they use it within 6 months or the state purchase it and uses it. Alright, I'll roll on to the next topic, right? Is there a point in the bill to say that their homes cannot be seized? There's no point in the bill to say that our homes can be seized. Is there a point in any bill to say our homes cannot be seized? You don't have to put that in. You'd have to positively put in we can seize people's homes to make it a bill that would do that. Why did I vote for the hate crime bill? I didn't. I voted against the hate crime bill. I was the main person speaking against the hate crime bill. If you check the record on it, or read, even there's an article in the journal at the moment. The common good is the idea. The common good is a term that's already in the Constitution, but it's like the good of society as a whole. Because ultimately this comes down to, the government says that the right of private landlords, big corporate landlords, big developers, their right to profit, the right of banks to profit, comes before the right of the rest of us to have an answer to the housing crisis. And like, we reject that. That's precisely people before profit. We think that the right, the common good, the right of ordinary people to have a home should come before any of those. Someone asked a question there about the defective blocks. Yeah, it's a scandal what happened. It's a scandal that it happened in the first place. It's a scandal that the people, after loads of campaigning, very impressive by the people of Donegal and elsewhere, still don't have a just solution that would mean 100% redress. Even the inadequate scheme that the government has still hasn't been rolled out. And a related issue from that is the issue I've been campaigning on with apartment and duplex owners of redress and fixing up all the defects that exist in apartment and duplexes. So if you're living in an apartment or a duplex block built between 1991 and 2013, chances are there's serious defects in your building. Between 50 and 80% chance of defects in your building. Over 100,000 homes affected. It's a huge issue, but most people don't know about it. So we've had a very effective campaign. You should check it out online. The 100% redress, not our fault campaign. We got, after big public meeting, a lot of pressure on the TDs, a lot of pressure on the government, we got a commitment for a 100% redress scheme, which is welcome. But it's taking so long, just like for the MICA people. Government's latest thing is to say they hope to have a scheme in place by autumn of next year. But that's simply not good enough, right? And what underlines the fact it's not good enough is the horrific fire that took place in Blanchardstown on Sunday night. Thankfully, nobody was injured, thanks to the fact that it happened during the day, and thanks to the work of Dublin Fire Brigade. But it proves the point that fires can happen in multi-unit developments. And so we need to make sure that we don't have fire defects, that we have proper containment of fires, that fires don't spread uncontrollably through buildings, as is currently, unfortunately, may well be the case. So we need emergency funding now. We can't wait around. The other issue I was going to deal with, just to encourage people while we still have time today, is you probably, if you listened last week, you would have seen me speaking and read during the week, and we were all speaking in the Dáil about our pro-choice bill, which would stop hundreds of women a year still being forced to travel to access abortion, despite the fact that people voted to repeal the 8th Amendment 5 years ago. People voted for choice, if you look at the exit polls. So we have a bill that would get rid of the 3-day wait period, that would ensure that people can have access to abortion beyond the 12-week limit. It would make it easier for people who have pregnancies with fatal fetal abnormalities to be able to access abortions. And that bill is coming up for a vote this evening. So something interesting happened yesterday where Breed Smith in Leader's Question asked Leo Varadkar whether a free vote would be given to Fine Gael TDs, and he said it would. So we're calling on people now, potentially, we could win the vote tonight, and then we could rapidly have access to abortion for everyone who needs it in this country. So asking people to, even at this stage, the vote will be about 8 o'clock tonight, contact your local TDs, whatever party they're from, and say, make sure you're voting for this bill. Make sure you're voting against the government amendment which seeks to tick it off for a year. Someone says this is a speech, not a discussion. Well, it's I am the only person on camera. You're not on camera. That's true. I am doing my very best to respond to people's questions and so on. Why do I answer your questions? Because I want to engage with people. So I think the attempt to import the trans culture wars to Ireland will be successful. Certainly the media would like to push it. An anti-trans agenda, the Irish Independent, Sunday Times, and Fine Gael would like to push it. There was a very revealing FOI done by, I think it was the journal.ie, but some media outlet. There was a government TD that said, we're not getting any complaints about the eviction ban. Everyone's giving out about trans rights. And someone did an FOI and revealed that was complete nonsense. That isn't what was happening. People were much more given out about the eviction ban. So the government wants to divide people by using issues like that. What help for people with mortgages with Vulture Fund who worry about future and no stability? Well, one thing we'd say is that there needs to be, and we introduced a bill last week, I think, to cap mortgage rates. So to say that like you can't, these extortionate rates that are being charged for ordinary people can't be charged. I'm very unlikable. Sorry about that. I apologise. I'll do my best. I'll do better next week, right? Opinion on social media trolls. It's a very relevant question. I mean, look, people can do what they do. Whatever makes people happy. It will be a discussion if people ask stuff. People are asking stuff and I'm answering. So I'm on two different phones, one on Instagram and one on TikTok. So you'll see some questions coming from Instagram and some questions coming from TikTok. Have the books been taken out of the schools on sex education? I hope not. Like, sex education is a vital way to protect young people from abuse. Often it's only when people go through sex education that they realise that they were abused. And I think those who are spreading lies about sex education, trying to say, you know, oh, they want to teach pornography to kids and masturbation, that's just rubbish. That's not true. They're telling lies. That is not contained in like the relationships and sexuality education curriculum. Sex education and objective sex education is really vital. I want children to learn about sexual fetishes. No, I don't. That's what's in the books. No, it's not. Have I ever thought about having a bit of cop on? I have. I do think about it. Do I think a 4-day week could be implemented? I might finish on this. There's another good question there. I do. I think it's a vital measure, actually. And it's actually a perfect example of a good eco-socialist measure. 4-day week, without loss of pay, improving people's lives, dramatically reducing carbon emissions, giving people more free time, would have a big positive impact in terms of people's lives and in terms of the environment. Did I go against the hate speech bill? I did. I was the one leading the charge against the hate speech bill, or I was commented on that earlier. Just a good question. Opinions on the transition from religious schools to non-multi-denominational schools. It is one of the kind of standout features from the census is the dramatic decline. Still a majority of people who identify as Catholic, but a dramatic decline. I think it's about 10%. And I think it underlines the need. We need to have a secular education system. That's like secularism implies like the defense of the right of people to have religious ideas, to propagate those religious ideas. 100%. People have every right to like be Catholic, be Muslim, be whatever religion you want to be. But we should have a complete separation of church and state. The church should not have control of our education system, where, for example, they're able to stand in the way of the delivery of even the objective of the sex education that we currently have. Catholic schools can legally say, no, we're not doing that, that goes against our ethos, and then not give children the necessary protection of knowing what abuse looks like, for example. And similarly, they shouldn't be involved in our hospitals. We need a full separation of church and state. I might finish on this one of explaining. Would you mind explaining the Fianna Fáil Fine Gael NATO thing? I think what you mean is like the drive for Fianna Fáil Fine Gael to basically get us into NATO. I would say this is a process. It's not just one thing that's happening. It's like bit by bit every day, or almost every day, they're getting us closer and closer to the point of joining NATO. That's, I think, very clearly their agenda. Like today, there was announced they're going to participate in a whole bunch of other European militarization projects. Almost every week there's something happening like that. At the moment, where next month is the so-called consultative forums, there's no consultation involved in reality on neutrality, which are all about a ready-up outcome saying let's ditch the triple lock. They have this high-level report on military spending where they want to significantly increase military spending, all with a view to, like, you know, these Micheál Martin, Leo Varadkar being kind of big boys at a European level, being the mature leaders that they need, that like they want to be, aligning with NATO in this world that is deeply divided and deeply dangerous at this point in time into like two major military blocs, both of which are the bad guys. So we think it's urgent that people come out to defend neutrality against the agenda that they are pushing, and say Ireland should be a neutral country, should speak out about all oppression, all imperialism, all invasions, as opposed to, you know, ending up ultimately in NATO and being forced to send young men and women from this country to go and fight for wars like we saw in the Middle East for oil and profit, which are not in the interests of ordinary people here, or certainly in the interests of people in the Middle East or anywhere else. All right, I will leave it there for now. I know there are lots of questions still not answered, but yeah, I'll be here again in a week's time, probably Wednesday as well. So I'll go again on the other questions. Thanks very much. Thanks for tuning in.